What if you could get the father of ancient medicine to diagnose our modern world? Well, today we're diving into a fascinating thought experiment, an imagined dialogue between two really powerful voices, Hippocrates himself and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a modern-day critic of how industry impacts our health. Let's see what happens when that ancient wisdom collides with a modern critique.
So, picture this, a conversation that stretches across 2,000 years to ask one single urgent question. In an age with all this incredible medical tech, why are we as a society sicker than ever before? This dialogue we're exploring today, it unpacks a really provocative theory about who the hidden architects of our modern health crisis might be.
It all really boils down to this one simple but profound idea from Hippocrates. For centuries, this was like the North Star for health. But just look at our world today. Have we kind of lost our way? The dialogue we're digging into suggests we've strayed dangerously far from this piece of ancient wisdom. And this, right here, is the central paradox. It's the big mystery. With all our amazing pills, our treatments, our high-tech hospitals, why are we facing this absolute epidemic of chronic illness? This is the core question our imagined conversation sets out to solve. Okay, so the dialogue kicks off with RFK Jr. basically presenting a case file on our modern world. He's not just diagnosing one patient for Hippocrates, he's diagnosing an entire era, what he calls the age of sickness. And the first piece of evidence he presents is, well, it's a staggering number. According to the source material, more than half of all kids and adults in the US are now dealing with some kind of chronic illness. Think about that. This isn't some fringe issue anymore. It's become the new normal. And the central argument here is that this didn't just happen by accident. It was by design. And boom, there it is. That's the core accusation from the source, as delivered by RFK Jr. in this imagined talk. The argument is that two massive industries have created this perfect, profitable loop. One makes us sick, and the other one sells us lifelong treatments to manage that sickness. So, who exactly are these architects of illness? Well, the dialogue first points its finger at the food industry. And it argues that the problem started with the very nutritional guidelines we were all taught to trust. Remember this thing from health class? For decades, this was the absolute gospel of healthy eating. But the source we're looking at argues this was like the original sin of modern nutrition. By putting all those refined carbs, breads, pastas, cereals, at the very bottom, at the foundation of our diet, it set us up for a metabolic disaster. And healthy fats? Oh, they were totally demonized. So if healthy fats got kicked to the curb, what filled that vacuum? The dialogue points to what it calls a recipe for disease, a nonstop flood of refined carbs, high fructose corn syrup in practically everything, and this wild cocktail of chemical additives. The source claims this became the blueprint for almost all modern processed food. But here's where the source frames the intent as something, well, a bit more sinister than just making cheap, tasty food. The argument is that these ingredients were specifically engineered to make us addicted, to literally hijack our brain's reward centers and make us crave more and more, long after our bodies have had enough. All right, let's shift gears to the second player in this system, as laid out in the source, Big Pharma. If the food industry creates the problem, the argument goes, the pharmaceutical industry has built an entire business model around managing it, not solving it. And this really gets to the heart of it, this fundamental conflict between healing and profit. The source argues that the entire business model is built on recurring revenue, on lifelong medication. A true cure, especially one that could come from something as simple as changing your diet, well, that just means they lose a customer for good. And this is where Hippocrates, in our thought experiment, delivers this brilliant counterpoint. His timeless wisdom just cuts right through it all. You can make the leaves on a tree look shiny and green, but if the root system is rotting, that tree is eventually going to die. It's such a stark, powerful analogy for the modern medical approach described in the source. So what's the alternative then? The dialogue introduces us to this idea, functional medicine. Instead of asking, okay, what drug matches this disease, it asks a totally different question. Why did this person get this disease in the first place? It's all about getting back to root cause analysis. I mean, just look at the difference. The two approaches couldn't be more opposite. Conventional medicine, as it's framed here, often turns into this conveyor belt of just managing symptoms. Functional medicine, on the other hand, its whole goal is to get you off the conveyor belt for good by actually fixing the underlying problem. Okay, so after diagnosing the problem and pointing out the key players, the conversation in our source finally turns toward the solution. And it's a pretty radical one, a complete overthrow of that old nutritional dogma we all grew up with. The proposed solution basically flips that old food pyramid completely upside down. The foundation isn't built on grains and carbs anymore. Instead, it's built on healthy fats and quality proteins, the actual building blocks for our cells and our brains. And those grains and sugars, they get moved all the way to the tiny little top to be eaten sparingly, if at all. So what's the whole point of this big shift? The ultimate goal is to restore what the source calls metabolic flexibility. The best way to think about it is like a hybrid car that can run on either gas or electricity. A healthy body should be able to burn both sugar and fat for fuel. This new way of eating is all about retraining your body to efficiently use clean-burning fat again and finally breaking that addiction to dirty-burning sugar. And all of this brings us to the really powerful conclusion of this imagined dialogue. The focus shifts away from big industries and complex systems, and it comes right back to you, to the individual. It's all about this idea of reclaiming sovereignty over your own health. Hippocrates leaves us with this final, empowering piece of wisdom, and the message couldn't be clearer. The most powerful tools for your health aren't in a pharmacy. They're in the choices you make every single day and in the incredible healing power that already exists inside your own body. And then RFK Jr. delivers the final call to action. He frames this simple act of choosing to eat real food not as some trendy lifestyle choice, but as a revolutionary act of taking back power, a fight for your own personal survival against a system that, he argues, has profited from our sickness. And so, this whole imagined dialogue leaves us with one last, really provocative question. After seeing how our health can be shaped by these outside forces, who are you going to entrust your well-being to? The architects of modern disease or the architect of your own choices?